Hey, friend. Welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. I am your host and fellow worthy warrior, Danielle Damrell. On this show, we are creating space for genuine connection by unifying women of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences. So grab your favorite drink and get ready to listen as we take a deep dive into our stories, making sure to honor and protect them in the process. We will also uncover the threads of creative processing that have already played a part in each of our lives. When we know how to utilize this as a skill, we can continue growing into the joy-filled, triumphant women we are created to be. You are created worthy. Hello. Welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I am joined by another worthy warrior, Natasha Hemmingway. Natasha Hemmingway is a corporate, startups, and entrepreneurial-based sales consultant, coach, and speaker, and the creator of Heart Not Hustle, a sales coaching firm founded with an aim to help others find and focus on the deeper meaning behind their business motivation and sales message. Natasha spent over 16 years as a successful sales professional with a Fortune 500 company and held a corporate role as a senior territory sales manager prior to the personal tragedy that led her on a life-altering path to redefine her own success and discover the true meaning of joy. After leaving the corporate world, she found a heart for corporations and entrepreneurs looking to garner their gifts and passions to create and scale their own businesses. Her collegiate background, unique career experience, and motivating empathy all play into the success of Heart Not Hustle. Clients and partners of Natasha's experience warmth and toughness through her research-based methods and one-on-one tactics that help them grow as sales teams, entrepreneurs, organizers, and leaders. Today, she continues speaking to and consulting corporations and entrepreneurs by helping them focus on the heart of their business instead of the hustle. I had the privilege of meeting Natasha during an event earlier this year, and oh my word, did this woman bring a powerful message. To be honest, sales have always been a huge area of struggle for me as a business owner, so hearing her speak was the slap on the hand I've been needing for the last 5 years. Though she's a straight shooter, her heart shined through, and I immediately knew I needed to invite her to share her story. It is such an honor to be sitting across the screen from this woman. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us today on the Created Worthy podcast. I can't wait to hear more about your real life story.
Thank you for having me, Danielle. I am honored to be here to share this space and this time, to be real, vulnerable, authentic. And I hope that my story serves and moves someone from your listenership. So honored to be here.
Yes, I have no doubt that it will. Even your bio alone impacted me. So
Thank you. Thank you.
yes. So I'd love to just start with a little bit about where you're from and maybe what life looked like for you growing up.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm from Anderson, South Carolina, but I'm actually born in Maryland. And
Oh.
we quickly moved to Anderson, South Carolina because my mom is an only child. I'm an only child. And unfortunately, when I was about 2 months old, my father died in a car wreck. And so my mom, being that she doesn't have siblings, and the fact that my mom lost both of her parents in college. Um, my mom knew that she needed to move us back towards South Carolina so that we could be around family. At that time, also, when I was very, very young, obviously 2 months old, my mom had already had her nursing degree from college and she was going back to nurse practitioner school or to nurse practitioner school, not back to nurse practitioner school at Emory in Atlanta. And so my grandparents actually lived on the same road. One of them had a house in Columbia, South Carolina, and they would come and stay and they would keep me for a month. And so my mom would go back and forth from,
Wow.
from South Carolina, Anderson, South Carolina, to Emory in Atlanta, study during the week, classes, and then come home, feed me. That's with like cloth diapers and all that kind of stuff. I don't mind
Yeah.
age, but like take care of me during the weekend. And then the next month, those grandparents would go back to Columbia, and my dad's grandparents, which that's a whole nother story. Really, my mom's side of the family, like you just heard me say, my mom's mom passed away when she was in college, her freshman year. That's actually my mom's aunt, but I've grown up knowing them as my grandparents, just so I don't confuse anybody.
Yes.
They're like, wait, you just said our parents are gone, and then you just said two grandparents. Yeah. So she's really my great.
Families.
There you go. But
Yeah.
I've grown up knowing them as my grandparents. So they had a house in Columbia. They would go back to their main house. And then my father's mother would keep me the other month. And so they alternated back and forth. So my mom got through nurse practitioner school. And then when she finished, we just stayed in Anderson, South Carolina. So looking what life looked like growing up for me was being raised by a widowed mom who is a warrior, truly. Like,
Yes.
that's why I really have no excuses for ever saying I can't do something or I don't know hard times or I can't make it through things, because I've seen my mom go through hard. I know her story. My mom's mom died from breast cancer. Then when I was in high school, my mom got breast cancer. So I've seen my mom battle that. So it really looked like growing up in a very strong home, led by my mom, and then being surrounded by family. So Danielle, it's probably not a surprise. When you met me, I'm very much a people person. I value relationships very deeply. I'm very loyal. I'll out myself. I'm an Enneagram 2 servant leader, and my wings are like 3 and 1, and they're neck and neck. So I'm the achiever and the perfectionist.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, I'm kind of a hot mess. I tell people, but it's okay, right?
Same. I'm a 4. A lot of my best friends are 2s. I have a lot of 2 best friends and a lot of 8 best friends. And I'm like, what in the world?
Listen, I have a lot of 8 friends, and it's like this perfect thing between 2 and 8. I swear my husband's an 8. He hasn't taken it yet, but I'm like, you need to take it. But I'm like, you're not supposed to type people. I'm like, I'm that person. I'm like,
Me too.
he's an 8.
Yep.
But anyway, so I have a lot of friends like that. So it looked like growing up with community and friendships being part of that, raising me and me going through, learning and growing without my dad being around, and seeing my mom work her butt off and being the only African American, nurse practitioner a long time ago in our hometown. And my mom is a person that, like, she knows everybody. She's a very relationship connector person too. So that's kind of like what life looked like growing up, small hometown. It's not crazy small, but it's small.
Yeah.
And then just growing up, I think with a mindset of just leaning in always. Like,
Yeah.
nothing is easy, nothing will come easy. And and especially being from the South, being raised at the age that I am, I know nothing comes easy.
Yeah. And you got to do the work. You have to do
Oh,
the
God.
work. You got to lean in, you got to see
Yeah.
it, and then you got to do it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then even more to kind of like what I mean by that, by being from the South, like being a double minority, like it's a different type of work of being in, not only being a minority by woman, but being a minority by race, is growing up where I came from. It's a thing. And
Yeah.
so yeah, but I mean, all in all, an amazing childhood, an amazing life. I'm so grateful. Grew up as a competitive gymnast. I mean, like all the things, like
Wow.
just
And talk about being raised by a village. It sounds like you were raised by a village.
1000%, 1000%. And which is why I love people deeply. I'm all about community. I'm very loyal. I'm all about serving other people, because I know we were blessed by the people who took time to serve and pour into me and help raise me, even when I wasn't their child or cousin or, whatever. They were friends, but they were more like family. And I can remember to this day, I can name them, like people who helped me when my mom was going to teach, at the point when she was teaching nursing school, she got to be at clinicals at the hospital, like at like 5 a.m. I mean, like super
Wow.
early, right?
Yeah.
And like having to be up, but like the bus doesn't come till then. So going and staying at a friend's house up the street, like all those things, but a very blessed childhood. I would not say bad, just challenged, but very much blessed. Did really
Oh,
go
I
without a
love
want for
that.
me. Yeah.
And I love that, like, there is, on the second episode of the season, I interviewed someone who talked a lot about holding joy and pain in both your hands. And I
Honey.
was like, that, like, I have the goosebumps even just thinking about it. I call them the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit bumps, but I've got them because I'm
Listen,
like, it
let's
is
go there, Danielle. I mean, like, Holy Spirit,
okay.
come on.
Yes.
My
Oh,
faith, girl, my faith is everything to me. Like, I would not still be on, I mean, being through some of the things I went through, I would not be on this earth if it wasn't for my faith.
same girl, same. Oh my gosh. It's kind of a hard topic to approach in the entrepreneurial space, I find, especially in networking groups. There's a lot of terms thrown around and spirituality and all of that. But I'm like, but
Yes.
listen, the Holy Spirit is real. I know the Holy Spirit is real because I'm alive. I'm alive today.
Listen, Danielle, we need to have a whole conversation because there is so much culture and people telling people I've got the Midas touch, I've got this stone and this rate. Girl, I cannot even get into it. That is not what we're here for, but we'll have
Yes.
another talk. There's so much.
Yes.
So
So
much.
much, but God was a pillar. Faith was a huge pillar in your life, it sounds like. And that makes so much sense. As you were telling your story, I was like, I wonder, I got a tick in my spirit. Like,
Yeah.
God was in this. God was in this for sure. You just said you have a blessed life. How do you recognize that without the existence of your creator?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mic drop
That
right.
boom.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, people are like, how do you get on stage? How are you so confident? How do you sell? How have you been, the only woman, or how have you been the only African-American senior territory sales manager in a Fortune 500? Like all these things. And I'm like, because I know who I am. And it really, the way that I know who I am is because I know whose I am, which I am a daughter of the King, right?
Yes.
So I have been gifted. I am anointed. I'm appointed. Like I'm called to this thing and this purpose. And because of that, it's not mine, right? It was gifted and given to me, and that is meant to serve other people. And so why
Yes.
would I not show up boldly in that?
Right.
It's not about me, right? And
Yes,
so
exactly.
same thread for anything in my life is through that lens.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So, on that note, you
Yeah.
were a Fortune 500 executive,
Yeah.
like leader in that business. What did life look like for you before becoming an entrepreneur? Because you talked to us a little bit about your childhood, but
Yeah.
then you grow up and you start making your own decisions and your own career choices. So, yeah, why don't you take us a little bit through your corporate journey?
Yeah. So I actually went straight from college I'm a biology degree major. So I love getting a little bit geeky about mindset, subconscious, conscious, because we don't do anything absent from our mindset, that part. And I
Yeah.
literally work with my clients through that, through a whole cycle called the fear to faith cycle, because it's a real thing. You have to listen to yourself and know yourself and have the self-awareness. Anyway, biology degree, thought I was going to go to med school, wanted to go to med school, coming from that background. And then after going to a private college, I was like, these scholarships have been great, but I still have a lot of debts. And I am over school. Like biology degree as an undergrad is no joke. Everybody else is chilling and hanging out. And I'm like, no, I'm like up studying with a
Yeah.
banker's light on, trying not to wake up my roommate like that.
That sounds
I,
miserable.
I'm like, I am done. Other people have these degrees, not that other degrees are not hard, but I'm just like, undergrad biology, it's a whole thing.
Hmm.
So I was like, I'm not going to med school. I changed my mind, not going to med school, don't want to go to nursing school. And I said, okay, so what can I do that will use my love for science and people? Because I knew I could not go work in anybody's lab. Number one, they'd fire me probably after day 2 because I would talk to people too much. I would not be focused enough. And there's no windows usually in those places. Miss me with it.
Yeah.
She's not available. It's not me. So
Hmm.
literally God's hand on my life. At the time, pharmaceutical sales was like the career to have. Like, I mean, you come out of school making a lot of money that young. Like a lot of times that profession, you would come out of school making more money than your parents, seriously, who have been working longer.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a really great career. And so, but they used to not really let a lot of younger people in. And so, by the grace of God, I got in. And then I had actually applied um, to go into physical therapy school as well. And I was like, you know what, God, I don't know where I'm supposed to be, which one, but Lord, whatever you bring first, I trust it. And that's where I'm supposed to be. And that job came first and moved me to Charlotte versus going to MUSC in Charleston for physical therapy school, or St. Augustine, Florida. I was going to go to another school, and that came first. And I was like, done. decision made because I had put it in God's hands. And so moved to Charlotte, started in pharmaceutical sales, worked in there for 8 years, got promoted to senior territory manager there, which being a minority back then, it was not, it was not a lot of women, but then it was certainly not a lot of Black women at all.
Right.
And so then I got promoted. Then I actually left that position and went to a higher level of sales because I was like, I've been doing this long enough. I want to make more money. And the industry was just changing in not a good way. And I'm like, I have paid all this money for this biology degree. I know I'm smart, but this industry has just shifted a little bit much. It's not for me anymore. So I went into medical device sales, which was like way more my speed, way more opportunity, way more money. But it is very cutthroat because it's sales, period. If you don't perform, you get out. And so ended up getting there, stayed there another 8 years. Amazing times. And then in 2013, it's kind of started in 2012 when I started going for this promotion, but it's a promotion where it's called senior territory manager within this company, but to get to it is just way harder. So it literally, you have to have 8 quarters where you are at 100% of quota or better. So that means every quarter for 2 years, basically 8 quarters, you have to be at 100% of your goal, your revenue goal, or above. If you drop below, the clock starts over. Okay. So during this time where I'm in the running for this, and you have to be checked off for like HR, leadership, like there's different performance.
Man, talk about being under a microscope.
Oh, it's a thing. It's a thing. But then you also have to have these leadership checkoffs, right? Things that kind of fall in the HR umbrella of like, your leadership qualities, being able to train other people, all these things. So while in the running for that in 2013, we ended up losing our first full-term son. So we lost our son, completely unexpected. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, changed my entire life. Like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that happening and honoring my son with the rest of my life.
Right.
So we went through that, it was devastating. And then after that, it was this thing of, I knew in my spirit that time was over there, but I didn't know what next. I didn't know where to go. I was just kind of like, okay, like this is where God still has me. And so I ended up like FYI, when you're full term, you don't get to, if you lose a baby full term, you don't get maternity leave. So it's
what? Are you
yeah.
serious?
Yeah, it's like a thing. And even like people are trying to get those laws changed because it's horrible.
Still a thing?
Yeah, it's still a thing. Yeah, still a thing.
That
you
makes
don't
me
get
really mad.
Yeah, it is one of the most devastating things because you only have so much PTO, like time off, right?
Right.
And I'd already taken time off the week going in to my due date. Because when you're in sales, you're like out driving around in the field. And I'm like, I cannot be out an hour and a half away from home and like going to late, like, no, that's not gonna work.
Right.
So I'd already taken time off. So once we had lost our son, I didn't have the opportunity to take a lot of time off after that. So I had to take maybe like a week off and then go right back to work. And it was devastating. But at that time also, but God, right? Being in the midst of it all, I remember feeling and having these thoughts of like, I just don't even want to be here anymore. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go through all this. Because the pain is like so strong. And I remember sitting thinking like, how can I get through like the next minute? How am I going to get through the next, literally like 2 minutes? Like your mind literally is like slowed down in this very, like, you feel like everything else is like moving fast, but I'm moving like this. Right.
Yeah.
And
you
it's
can just barely process what's in front of you.
Yes. So the endurance of that kind of slow pain is like, I can't do that. But I knew also that is not me because I'm a lover of life. I'm a lover of people. And if I put my mind, head, and hands to something, like I'm all in. And so I knew that was not really fully me talking. So I was like, let me get on into grievance counseling like ASAP.
Yeah.
Into grievance counseling, started that run for that promotion all over, ended up getting it, ended up being the only African-American senior territory sales manager across the country, across the division. And I say that to
Wow.
say not because it's like a great thing. It's actually a very sad thing that it was me being the only one at that time.
Right.
Um, but I also say it to say the next part of the story is because that was so hard for me to even just get and achieve, probably not even more than 6 months after that, I end up getting pushed out of my job. And that felt like a second death because
Yeah.
that's all I've ever done and all I know. Like those people, I always say those physicians, nurses, like they helped raise me, right? As an
Right.
adult, going from a college kid to adult, they've been through all these things with me. And I had very great relationship with them and still have their numbers, right? And it's like going through that felt like something else being taken away from me that you start to realize how much of your identity is wrapped up into the thing that you do or
Right.
the title of becoming a mom or almost being a mom, all of these things. Then that happened. And also, too, back, I'll rewind you back. After we lost our son in 2013, we quickly got pregnant again. So I was grieving, literally that, holding joy and pain in the same hands. I mean, in one hand, same time.
Hmm.
Couldn't have said it any better than your previous guest because it
Yeah.
was that. It was like loss, and then it was like, "Oh my gosh, what a blessing we're pregnant." And
Yeah.
so I was going to grievance counseling because I'm also like, I'm massively grieving, but I also am responsible and I have choices to make of how I live, how I am determined to honor my son that we lost through
Mhm.
my hands, head, heart, and my purpose while I'm on this earth day by day by day. And
Wow.
also the choice to live in joy while I'm carrying this next baby. And so that was all
Yeah.
in running for that promotion again, right?
Right.
So all these things were culminating. We have our baby in 2014, finally get to this promotion, and then end up getting pushed out of my job. And it was devastating.
Yeah.
Um, However, I knew that God had nudged me back after we lost our first son. And it was literally in my spirit. And I said it to my husband. It's like, I know I'm made for more. I know I'm called for greater, but I just don't know what that is. Like that is what's on my spirit, but I don't know what that thing is.
Yeah.
And I just kind of kept going, doing what I know. And then I remember thinking when I got pushed out of my job, like how painful, how like why am I having a process? Like I don't understand. But it's like because of my faith, yet again, because of my faith, yet again, I was able to make choices to say, God, I'm going to trust you, even
Hmm.
in the midst of this storm. I know that you say you can provide peace that surpasses understanding,
Yep.
right? Second Timothy 1:7, right? Says, for
Yep.
God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Like I'm operating from those places and having to remind myself. And it's like, there is purpose in this pain. I cannot see it. And I'm very, very, very much in pain, Lord, but I trust you, even though I'm still angry with you. Right. So, because
Hmm.
I keep it real,
And
y'all.
I don't think that I think God can take on our anger. I think that Job is a perfect example
Oh,
of questioning him and saying, "Why? Why did
yes,
you do this to me?"
yes,
He and at
yes,
the end of the story, spoiler alert, God calls him his good and faithful servant, his most
yes,
good and faithful servant. And it's like I have learned so many lessons just from that book alone. And actually, a passage that has been on my heart for the last 2 weeks. So it's ironic that we're having this conversation. It's totally a God thing.
yes.
Is Matthew 6, where it talks about how each day's troubles is enough for today.
Listen, Matthew 6:25 through 34. Don't even get me started. Some of my
That's
favorite
it.
verses. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening or creative or whatever, like lean on that.
I will
Lean.
put it, I'm actually going to put it in the show notes because I think it's
Yes.
such a powerful
Ooh,
passage. And like at first, I was just reading that last 35 and 36. And then I was like, okay, but what's the context? And it just built and built and built. So it
oh,
was weird because I've read that a million times, but it's never quite hit me the same way as it has these last few weeks. And so many conversations I've had with friends and family and just people who have called me, I'm like, you need to let's read Matthew 6. And I'm just
yeah,
reading that over them because I'm like, there's so
right,
much in here that just
yeah,
can get you through and help you realize that God knows that you're human. He knows
Yeah.
you're going to face anxiety. He knows you're going to be stressed. He knows there's going to be times where you feel overwhelmed, sad, depressed, anxious, grief. These are things that he is aware of. He's created human beings. He knows how our minds work, but he's also provided a solution for us to have peace and joy in the midst of those things.
Yes. And he
Yeah.
says, who are you? How does he say? Who are you to not worry? If I care about the birds, right? And the lilies in the field, and I was
Yes.
born in the fire, who are you not to think that I do not care about you in that
Yes.
way? He's like, it's that whole passage, it is like my jam. I hold on to that thing because it reminds you, yeah, like, who am I to think that God does not care about the hairs on my head, the worries that I have, the troubles of today and tomorrow? He says, do not worry, for today has enough trouble. Like, stay here with me.
Yeah.
Like it's in the presence.
Be
Like Mike
present.
Todd, yeah, Pastor Mike Todd, that he's out of Transformation Church, but he did a whole sermon series on here is holy, right? Like, here, right where I have you is holy. It is still holy ground. Even though it's painful, it is still holy. Even though you feel like you're in the wilderness, it's still holy, right? And it reminds us that it's still good, fertile ground. And I had to remind myself that because it was like, Danielle, what I call like a stripping process. It stripped me from all of those things, those superficial things
Yeah.
that
What you
make
built
me
your
up.
identity on yourself, not what
Woo!
God, the identity he has planted within you.
Come on.
Yeah.
That. And I was like, oh God, what is this? And to the point, you guys, that I always tell people, don't go to I mean, you can go to my Instagram and you look, but don't get caught up in the pictures and think or compare yourself to be like, oh my gosh, and I don't wake up like this. This has been a journey.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a journey. And to the point, a journey of the word that I say, it is my word, still is my word, will always be my word. You want to know my word for the year? Every year,
Yes.
surrender. Surrender.
Surrender. Oh my gosh, that was my word this year too.
Girl, listen, to the point, one of my clients literally created this like acrylic cry cut, like word that says surrender, and it sits on my desk back there every day. It is my word because I am a perfectionist, because I am achiever, because I like to serve others. I will go and go and go and go. And I'm a planner. I'm like, Lord, give me this little step. Like I told my client today,
Yeah.
God will give me a little step. And I'm like, oh, I got the whole strategy, God. Don't worry.
Yeah. And then
And
isn't it true that God laughs when you tell him your plans?
listen,
Yeah.
laugh and he will sit you down and make you
Yeah.
cry. And to the point where you turn around and you're like, oh, wait, your ways, not my ways are greater.
Yes.
Literally.
Exactly. Exactly. I like so many situations have happened recently where I'm like, "Ugh, God just must think he's a comedian in my life right now."
Yes. Yes. You're
And
like, oh,
really it's
this is
like,
so
okay,
not in
but
my
what do I need to
plan.
learn? What is he
Yes.
actually trying to teach me?
Yes. And how quickly can we get through this lesson?
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
tired.
ready. I'm ready to learn. I'm going to hold my
Yeah.
hands open. Posture of surrender.
That. And so
Yeah.
it was all of that. And through that surrendering, he told me to take a step. And I first started out as a health coach, told me to take the leap, step, took the leap. We talked to our financial advisor, all this stuff, and said we would give it a year. We get 8 months in. Listen, I'm from sales, y'all. I know about sales strategy process. I can sell ice to an Eskimo. I can sell ketchup to a girl in white t-shirt. Bring it. But when I tell y'all, I could barely budge or move anything through that. Like, and I mean, it's such a whole story and a journey. But through that, that is when I met my surrender season where I was like 8 months in, I'm like, oh, this is not it. I told my husband and I told my financial advisor, I was like, this is not it. I said, and I was angrier because I'm like, God, you gave me confirmation by 3 ways and you told me to take this leap. And I said, God, don't let me make a decision that's going to risk my family, anything. And God gave me confirmation, gave me the yes, we move forward. And I was upset. And I tried to run back to what I know, which is sales, corporate medical sales. And my husband, who had faith in me when I didn't have it in myself, when I took the leap the first time coming out, because I was going to try to go back right away then. And my husband was like, why are you going back to what you know God told you not to be in anymore? He's like, you were very clear on that. And man, I tell people all the time, seek wise counsel. Seek wise counsel when you are in the midst of your wilderness and the bad times and all that, because everybody and anybody is they're not equipped to speak into your destiny, your purpose, your journey. So don't be running around giving everybody permission to that. That is
Right.
protected space. That is very vulnerable ground.
And that's
And
where discernment comes in too, right? Like equally, I think almost equally important is one, everybody somehow feels entitled if they know you to give you some kind of advice. But that
yes,
doesn't mean you have to take it. That's a lesson I'm learning right now hard is there are lots of people who want to speak into my life and tell me what they think I should do because they've seen the talents or whatever. And I'm like, no, 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 no. But what is God saying that I'm called to walk into? Even if you think somebody, I've had some mentors in my life who I've highly trusted and I love them and I respect them, but they've spoken some things into my life that weren't right for me, not at that time.
listen, that's why I say you must know the word for thyself, right? You must have your own personal relationship with Christ so that you can hear, seek, discern, right? Know, trust.
Mhm.
So, because when you make certain moves, they are not going to make sense to other people. And if
Right.
you do not have that faith and that trust in God that God told you to go there, you will waver, get weak, and run out of it real
Right.
quick. But when you know you are exactly where God put you, and even if it's painful or even if it's a joy, like you can trust that. And those
Mhm.
are the things that help us take those leaps. And that was going that through that process and trusting God, going there. I'm like, oh, that was a stepping stone. Because
Right.
what I quickly realized is like, I'm a former competitive gymnast. I enjoy working out. I have very strong work ethic because it's just the way I've been raised, my personality type, like that stuff is in me. But you can't make one thing I learned, which prepped me for coaching, didn't realize it then, but I knew it was a stepping stone, is that you cannot want something more than someone wants it for themselves, period.
Well,
And you cannot teach people work ethic, period. And so those things allow me to hold my clients accountable because coaching is guiding, right? Leading, wisdom, insight to a specialty of your area, but it's also the accountability. I tell them, I told them at on that stage, I said, I'm going to give you love shoves because I'm here to get you to where you came to get to, right? Like
mhm.
that's my job. So it's like I understand, and I also know how to call them up when they're not holding themselves accountable. Hey, you are not holding yourself accountable to the growth and the intention you said you desire, right? So all that was there for me to understand how to take those tools and utilize it. So then I went into a speaker coaching program. It was not coaching, my head was not the direction. So it was like health coaching. That didn't work. I had to sit and surrender for about 4 or 5 months. Then I got accepted into this international speaker coaching program. When I tell you again, God was not qualified, did not meet the requirements, applied, got in, spent 9 months in that, spoke internationally twice. It was what forced me to start
Wow.
creating my brand, took me to Canada twice, Kelowna, Canada. It was amazing. But I was like, where are we going, Lord? Like, what? This was not my idea, you guys. It was literally the Lord. And I was like, yes, I mean, which when I speak, it's not a surprise to people, like people who've known me or grown up. It's like those things, it's funny because the things that are in you, God places them there. They just don't sometimes actually bear fruit till later. Like you can't see it.
Sometimes it's like many, 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 many years later too. Yeah.
Yes.
And he'll
Ab-
take things from your childhood sometimes and he'll be like, bing, bing, boom. I'm going to use that to
yes.
grow and equip you in now this thing that I'm going to hand you.
1000%. That's why I'm like, when people know me from my hometown or my family, they're like, oh, of course she is. Yes. Yes, Tasha's a speaker.
That
Yes, she's
makes sense.
yeah, makes sense. My friends are like, yes, you're always the one that I come to. And if I need to be talked off the ledge or I need to stop acting crazy or I need to be told the truth, but it's from a place of love, like, of course. So it's funny to see the journey. And I share very openly and intimately with people. And I take the time to walk that story out because I think all too often people skip the things that are painful or that didn't go right or that did not look linear, and they then compare themselves to that and they're like, well, why is my journey? And it's like, no, this is the stuff that's necessary for people to hear, is to know, like, it for me too, as confident as I am, as I know that I know my skill set and my lane. I too have been through pain to get here, and it has taken a lot of time. And it's like a whole year. Sometimes I feel like I lost a whole year, but it wasn't a loss. It was intentional. God made and intended for me to be at that space of being a health coach and working towards my I literally like have half of my international certification for health coaching, never finished it because I'm like, God was like, that's done. I was like,
Right.
oh, okay. And he was like, and you're going to surrender. And I was like, oh, really? Perfectionist, achiever, surrender. What does that mean? I do
Yeah.
nothing. Oh, that's cute.
He's
Not
like, sit down.
that. Danielle, this very office, there were times that I would, he said, like, cut it off, all of it. And I would sit in this office. I'm talking about not even sit. I'd be on the floor, supine. If you can imagine,
Mhm.
Superman. And the only thing that I could lift were my hands. And I would be like crying, like, please help. Lord,
Mhm.
show me what I'm supposed to do. Reveal. Because I mean, I was just sitting like, because when you get to that place and God starts stripping things from you, it feels you want to be angry, but it's purposeful. I can tell you that it is purposeful because sitting in that space, you have no choice but to surrender at some point. But I always say
Right.
this, it's not enough to surrender. You also have to be willing to obey because your fruit lies on the other side of obedience. That
That is a mic drop. Whoa.
I'm telling
The
you,
fruit lays on the other side of obedience.
yeah. So it's not enough to surrender. You can
I
say you
needed
surrender
that.
all day. Yeah, you can say you surrender all day and still not obey. It's like, you know what, Lord, yes, I surrender. I surrender. Yep, I'm gonna let it go. And then he tells you to do something, or he tells you to let it go, or he tells you to sit down, or he tells you to stop, and you don't do it. That's not being obedient. And if we're not going to be obedient, like he does, like obedience is what honors him. It's what says, I trust you, even though I
And
don't see it, I don't understand it, I can't feel it.
yeah,
Yes, Lord, I trust you. Why would he not honor that?
right.
I mean, he
And it's
says,
the basis of respect, right?
come on,
Yeah.
respect, honor, love, reverence for him,
Yeah.
faith,
Yeah.
you
Real
know?
faith.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then it led me to the speaking, which then led to coaching, and then got to coaching. And at first, when I was coaching, it was actually meaningful success coaching. It wasn't sales because I was so heartbroken from being pushed out of that. And everybody kept telling me, you need to do sales. You need to do sales. You should coach in sales. There's so many, like nobody really has sales experience out here. And there's so many women who need it. And da da da. I'm like, no, been there, done that. God closed that door. Thanks. No saying, no thanks. And so meaningful success coaching was really about helping women go from career to calling. And it was what God took me through. And I'd already had this, the business strategy, the biz dev from sales and from being a manager. And then women, after I would help them develop the plan, work on the mindset, they'd be like, can you help me sell it? And I'd be like, no, I don't do that anymore. And so I started sending them literally like,
Yeah.
they're like, sorry, no, not doing it.
At least
And
you
I,
had boundaries.
yes, I was like, no, that is not it anymore. I'm done with that industry. Like it was painful. That hurt me. And I would send them to like a business coach. And then people would come back and complain and they're like, but they don't coach sales, like not like what I need or what you're talking about. It's like they might teach you how to socially sell and how to, monetize Instagram, things like that. And I was like, well, yeah, I don't do it anymore. I don't know. Go take somebody's course. I don't know. And then it took a friend. It took a friend who was in marketing. She said, the Holy Spirit has spoken something to me. Do you mind if I share it with you? Do I have your permission? I was like,
That is how you know that the Lord is working and moving, is when people approach a conversation like that, because it's awkward. I've been on that receiving end where the Lord puts something on my heart he's like, you need to tell this to this
oh,
person. But I'm also like,
a friend.
I'm not you, God. Why don't you just do it? And he's like, well,
Yes.
that's why I put you in their life. And I'm like,
Listen,
okay, but you have to approach it in a way that is like, are you open to what the Lord has told me to tell you? And take it, go and take this and pray over it and think about it and discern, make your own decision. But
yes.
this is the piece of wisdom that the Lord put on my heart for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That
amazing.
is deep. And that's a heavy battle. That's a heavy mantle to carry. I tell people who have that gift, that prophetic gift, I'm like, whoo, because that one's like, oh my gosh, I have to go tell that person and they might not really want to hear that. Or are
It's
they gonna believe?
scary.
Yeah, it's scary. But she said it, and I said, yes, of course. And she said, why are you not coaching and leading women in the way that God has gifted you to and the way they keep asking you to over and over and over? And she said, I believe it is a heart posture. It is a matter of your heart, and you need to go deal with that because God is calling you to that. And when I tell you, I immediately started bawling, crying because I knew. And then, how, like, when you're not ready to hear something, but people keep saying it, you just kind of file it away. You
Hmm.
just kinda, like, push it off. And
Yeah.
then I started realizing, like, all this regular I remember my branding and marketing manager told me I should do it. I remember my first international business coach who told me I should do something on sales. My husband had said it, like, over and over and over. So I had to and she said, "Just sit and pray with it." And I knew what was coming. And so I sat, I prayed, I told my husband about it, and my husband was like, "I was just waiting for you to arrive to it." He was like, "That is where you belong. That is where your power lies and where you will serve people at your highest." And I bawled because it meant letting go of all of the work, time, money, energy that I put into building content, website, lead magnets, funnels, um, keynotes. Everything was around that. And I had to strip all of that and create and develop all of the sales process, strategy, curriculum, keynotes, copy. Like, we had to start all over. But
Was
when I tell
that,
you,
oh,
go,
sorry. No,
no,
go ahead.
no, I was just saying, when I tell you, it's like, again, when you trust God, his ways are greater than your ways, always, and in all ways.
Right.
So it was like when I was doing meaningful success coaching, it was like there was, like, if you think of it like a faucet, it was like the trickle was there, it was there. But when I said yes to what God was calling me back to, but in a different vicinity, in a different space, it was like the dam broke. It was like, woo, like the blessings, the abundance, the client. I mean, it just went like a hockey stick, like,
Yeah.
whoop, straight up. Mhm.
Wow. So was that the beginning of your Heart Not Hustle program?
Got it. I know
Wow.
exactly where I was. I was standing in my kitchen downstairs getting lunch, and I said to my branding marketing manager, she had been with me from inception. And I said to her, so she knew my pain, my story, the reiteration, the journey, the struggle, the oh my God, we are having to do. And she was a Christian, thank God. And
Mhm.
she said, "What is it? What's the essence?" Because a lot of people can say they talk about sales. And I said, I want to teach people how to sell with heart, not hustle. I want to break the stigma and the myth that sales is this icky, nasty, uh,
You have to sell your soul type of
yeah,
feeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
like horrible space when all of us as business owners understand. Well, a lot of people like to say, I don't sell. I'm like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Every single one of us is selling something all the time, whether it's your brand, the company you work for, your own products, it doesn't matter. But it's like, I want to shift and change. And she goes, oh my God, that's it. Sell with heart, not hustle. And we rode with it, and people were responding to it big time. And I was like, oh, I'm about to lock this down by trademark. So it is a
Yes.
official registered trademark. It's like a real thing. So
It's a
that
real
is a
thing, you
whole,
guys.
that's
And
a
the Lord,
whole
yeah, the Lord did that. He took all of, I love that you were talking about from career to calling. And then in that, somebody else called you out and they were like, why aren't you walking in your
come on,
calling?
Danielle. Come on. I've never actually made that connection in that way, but you are exactly right.
Yeah, and that's so funny. That's exactly how the Lord works. That's how he works.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
But,
I feel I'm going through that same thing, honestly, like, to be completely honest, um,
ooh,
with worthiness. Like,
ooh,
I say you are created worthy, but that's one of the biggest things I struggle with is feeling worthy myself at
wow.
anything. And so I think that the Lord has been doing this thing in my heart where he's like, you got to find your worth in me because
Mm.
you see me as worthy. You see the people I've created as worthy. So how are you not worthy?
How dare you not think that you are?
Yeah.
That is what you have to tell your mind and yourself, because that is so true. How can everybody else be worthy? They're the same sons and daughters of the King, of the same one that you are, of Christ. But
Mhm.
yet he didn't care about you. Like, he
Right.
says he's the 99 for the one, like, oh, so you're the one over here and he's calling you in.
Yeah,
Girl, that is
I
good.
know. So pray for my soul.
I
I'm going
absolutely
through it.
will. I absolutely will. And you know what I can say? Man, Danielle, to your listenership, I hope that your podcast, I hope that your people love on you and appreciate you and tell you how grateful they are for you, because it takes a really, really big leap to call out what you are struggling with that is your brand. That is deep. And not a lot of people are willing to pull back the layers to be that vulnerable because their ego and their pride, or just the feeling of feeling vulnerable, right? Or even being judged. Well, maybe she's not worth, like, man, I hope that God richly blesses
Thank you.
your soul, your business, and whatever he calls you to, because you are needed, you are called, you're anointed, your voice. Like, I just, oh God, come on,
Oh,
God, do
I
a thing,
receive that. I receive it. Thank you
do a thing. Because I can feel
so
like
much.
there's so many times on this podcast, I have had chills when you said stuff. And it's like, for you to be able to sit on your own podcast. That's the other thing. It's not like you're being interviewed somewhere else, but you're on your own podcast with your own consistent listeners, and to be as real as you are, like, God ain't going to do nothing but good things with that, because he
Thank you.
sees your heart posture, right? And he sees you still walking through it, even though you don't feel like you are. Like,
Mm.
y'all better watch this testimony. Come
Thank
on.
you. Yes, Lord. Lord, he is working. He is at work. And this conversation seriously has been such a huge encouragement and blessing to me too. I actually think that what we're talking about ties really well into what you shared was your favorite quote, which is, you don't become what you want, you become what you believe.
Yes. I mean,
And also by Oprah Winfrey, which, by the way, my favorite book on the planet is The Path Made Clear by
oh,
Oprah.
woo, that thing is so good. I keep it right here. Go ahead.
Oh, me too. I've
It's
listened to it
beautiful.
at least 20 times. No
Oh,
joke.
you have it on audio?
I'm an Audible learner.
Me too. But I didn't
Really?
know The Pathway Made Clear was on Audible. I thought it was just the book of the
You
poems and
know
that.
what's so cool about it on Audible is that it's the actual interviews.
Oh
So
my,
you
okay.
hear them talking back and forth.
I'm downloading it because I'm like an iBooks person. Like, I'm big time audio.
Yeah.
It's so good, but I love that book too.
It's an incredible book.
Did you
Incredible.
see her when she was on tour?
No, I wish I did. Did
Girl,
you?
yes. And it was, when she did her tour maybe a year or two ago,
Yeah.
I was
With
like, are
Michelle
those,
Obama?
yeah, well, she had different people at different cities.
Okay. She
Like
came
Lady
here to
Gaga,
Denver with Michelle Obama. And I was
girl,
like, I need to be
Danielle,
there.
Danielle, it was powerful. It was a journey, a story, the ups, the down. What, not a dry eye in there. You would go from laughing to, and it was the pictures and her story.
Yeah.
Woo, girl.
But do you want to hear something kind of funny? My one bucket list item is to have coffee with Oprah. I don't need it to be filmed. I don't need I just want to sit down and have coffee. And I would substitute, like, Michelle Obama, also equally incredible, incredible woman. So I would love to sit down with either of them.
Yeah.
I'm like, people are like, aim for the stars. I'm like, I just want a cup of coffee with Michelle Obama or Oprah.
Listen, hey, that is stars. That is aim for the stars. Go for it. Why
Yeah.
not? If you don't believe, then who will?
Right. Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to wrap up today talking a little bit about creative processing. Are you familiar with the term creative processing? It's kind of something that I've been working on and really leaning into for the last couple of years. But a lot of people know of creative process, but not really creative processing.
Yes, I feel like I know, but I could possibly be wrong, because I'm the person that identified and I'm like, I'm not a creative. And my friends who are creative are like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Stop it. Everybody is. And so educate me fully.
Okay,
Go.
so creative processing is a tool that we can all use to activate our creative minds to process through any certain intention. So you said that your creative processing methods were organizing and cleaning.
Yes.
So for creative processing, a prompt for you to use, or how I approach creative processing, is with the purpose of your creative activity. So for you, it could be decluttering, is to process, enter your intention. So for an intention for you could be to reduce your stress load or create space for more joy, peace, acceptance, clarity, whatever it is. So the purpose of decluttering is to process reducing your current stress load. So you set that intention, and then you just set an intentional time and you process that. So whether you turn on some music and you write, or you turn on you sit in silence and you paint, whatever it is. You're activating. You can even create spreadsheets or declutter, clean. It doesn't matter. The key is the intention. You go into that activity with that intention. And then by the end of it, because of how our minds are made psychologically, you will achieve some forward progress.
That is so good, because that is exactly what happens when I am stressed. I will go to clean or like declutter something,
Yeah.
and through that it absolutely reduces my stress.
Yes.
But what I have not thought of is setting an intention of taking that further. So it's like what you just did was brought me the awareness of really how much more I could actually get out of that
Yeah.
by going with an intention of, I need to reduce my stress. And then after this, I'd like to sit down and do.
X, Y, and Z. Like you
Yeah.
get that clarity to figure out what that next step is. It's
Yeah.
that what this is
Good.
it's a know better. When you know better, you do better type of thing. Thank you, Maya Angelou, incredible woman.
Yes.
So my very favorite part about creative processing is that everyone already does it. Just most people don't yet realize the power of setting a clear intention to accompany how you're already choosing to create. So when you set that intention, you're utilizing this creative processing as a tangible tool or coping skill to bring clarity, hope, renewed excitement, or whatever positive feeling you're seeking. And let's be honest, we all have bad days. So
Yeah.
that's really when creative processing is most effective. And that has been the biggest game changer for me. I've been in trauma therapy for the last 12 years, and I've learned a lot of coping skills. What I haven't learned is a tangible way to take those coping skills and put them into action so that I
Mhm.
can go from identifying the problem, feeling the problem, recognizing where the problem started, to actually overcoming that problem. Because
Mm.
when you're stressed and your rational mind is turned off, you have to do something to turn that on. So creative processing, or really there's a lot of different coping skills, but creative processing can be, it's really a lot of them combined, can be that bridge that takes you from identifying the problem to actually overcoming the problem, even in just a small forward motion step.
That is so wild that you talk about that, because, and even more in alignment of us having this conversation, is because the fear to faith cycle that God gave me, a lot of it is based off mindset, your subconscious. How do you actually become more conscious? Take your subconscious thoughts captive. And it goes in a
Yes.
cycle. Life event, the things that happen to us that make us think about life differently, right? And they also spin off triggers or things that we struggle with. And I say that next step is like fears, right? A lot of fears come from those specific life events that we've experienced, that hold space in then sometimes not so great way, right?
Right.
And so the fear that shows up from that, and the awareness that your brain has to have that, oh, wait, this is a trigger or this is fear. And then it's like fear is a natural survival instinct, right?
Right.
So it's like, how do I actually process and move through the fear? Right. And so then the next step is pause. And
Mm,
pause is all about, how do I take my power back? Right. Because usually we
wow.
get caught in what I call a short loop, where we go from life event, fear, choices, life event, fear, choices. So we're making choices from a place of fear, right? And then we just pop right back up to that trigger, right? And we struggle. But the full cycle that God gave me in my wilderness, in my first season of surrender, when I talk about laying on this floor, is really stripping everything away, and then really exposing and shining a light on, like, what was I really afraid of in this new season, because none of it was familiar. None
Right.
of it was anchored. None of it was what I'm used to doing or in a position I'm used to being. And it brought up, and even like making a ton of money in that industry for 16 years. But one of the biggest fears and triggers that came up was money, because I've seen
Wow.
my mom lose her parents, raise herself, struggle, lose my dad, struggle, like pushing, working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs to take care of us. Seeing my mom, go through cancer, struggling with money because radiation, chemotherapy, all that stuff was not very well covered back then.
Yeah.
And so seeing all that, it was always this thing of like, oh my God, are we going to lose everything? Oh my God, are we going to be without? Because it's all this struggle. And oh my God, am I going to be without my mom? Because I'm the only child. My godmother lives in Baltimore. So what am I going to do? Like all of these fears, right? And so I literally, God gave me that cycle in my season of surrender. And the cycle goes life event, fear. And you identify the fears, identify the life event, right? And then it goes pause, which is taking your power back, and you identify what are those things and what does it look like? Is
Mm.
it cleaning? Is it,
Yes.
is it cutting off social media? Is moving what is going to get you there? And then it goes to choices, and choices is all about how can you make choices from a place of truth and not fear at that point.
Mm.
It's paused. And then
Yeah.
it goes to action. And so
Yes.
how do you actually take action? It only takes one small step. I tell my clients, every single one of my clients goes through this cycle. We write it down. There's a workbook. We go in through that whole thing. Because the most people with sales, being fearful of sales, it's a whole mindset thing. Really,
Yeah.
really. And
Yeah.
so, but we go through that and do that work. So it's so wild that you're saying that because it's very similar. Like you,
Yeah. When you mentioned that earlier, I was like, this is going to tie really well into creative processing. Cause I mean, I
yeah,
really didn't even know your whole cycle, but just the fear to faith, like that's really the heartbeat of it. And
but
that
with
pause,
practical steps.
the act of slowing down in
Yeah.
itself to connect with yourself and with your creator
Yep.
has an immediate effect psychologically, period. It's,
1000%.
yeah, it's
That's
definitely like, it's just a way, another way for you to show up for yourself because let's like, honestly, that's half the battle is just
oh,
showing up for yourself.
say it again. Yes.
It's,
Yes.
yeah, it's, you know what? It's more than half the battle. I think it's probably more like 80-90% of the battle is just taking the step to do something intentional so that you do slow down, so that you do process both your past and your future and so that you can live in your current, in your present. That's what we're created to do. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to reflect. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to vision cast, but
Yes.
we're created to live in our present. How do we do that if we're not slowing down?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true. And it's what I talk about when I'm talking about the fear to faith cycle is understanding your subconscious. And when I tell
Yeah.
you, when I was downloading all that and I started researching, I'm like, OMG, because your subconscious is of or concerning the mind of which one is not fully aware, but which influences one's actions and feelings. Like, excuse me. Oh, rewind
That's
that.
like more than 50% of what I've worked on in therapy is connecting with my subconscious and then
Listen,
listening to it. What do I do with
80% of
my
the time,
subconscious?
yes, 80%. It's either 90 or 80% of the time, it's in my stats, in my slides, that your subconscious is running the show. And the reason why we don't catch it is that we do not slow down enough to actually listen to our own thoughts. Dr. Daniel Amen talks about it all the time. Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's neuroscientist and Christian, they talk about it all the time is you should, they say, talk to yourself and do it often. A lot of times we're not having an internal dialogue with ourselves. We're just letting our subconscious run that dialogue and we're
Right.
not even aware, but it's influencing our actions and our feelings. And we're just out here just going. And so we're not dialoguing with ourselves or slowing down. We're always extrinsically out here.
Right. And
Seeking
when you
other
are able to throw a wrench in that toxic cycle, that one step is evidence of growth. Like, you
one
know,
out.
you're in a growth cycle when you've made one step. I think that's why I'm so passionate about creative processing, because a lot of people that I talk to can't afford therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I will say, if there is any amount of deep trauma or anything, really everybody should be in therapy. Use your
I agree.
resources, check into your local resources that is provided by state or different organizations. But if for some reason you can't be in therapy, you can still do something. You're not
Yes.
stuck. You don't
Yes.
have to be stuck. You just have
Yes.
to slow down. And you have to do the work. That's
Yes.
the other key, which is tying back to everything you said in the very beginning. Like, you got to show up and you got to do the work.
Yeah. I tell my clients, like, I'm not a God and I'm not God. I'm not the one God, period. I'm not God. Okay. Like, I'm not going to touch you and have a Midas touch and drop dollars out of you. Like, it doesn't work that way. There is other factors at play, right?
Right.
Time. I know what I do and I know I do it well, but I also do it well because I have the most amazing clients who give me their best yes. I give them my best yes. And then that's where all the goodness comes from. Not me. I'm not like the glory, the star. they write the testimonials. Yes, but that it's not me. It's we both show up. But more than anything, I tell them, not only do they give me their best yes, they give it to me, but they give it to themselves.
Yeah. Oh my
Because
gosh.
that's it. That's where it is. And that's why I tell them when they're on a strategy call with me, I'm like, I'm not here to sell you me. Truly, I'm not. I'm here to help you get to the decision that's going to be best for you and that you say you want. The growth
Right.
and you say you desire, that's me to hold you accountable to get to that.
Right.
Whether that be me or somebody else.
I love that.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, do you want to talk a little bit about anything that's coming up next in your life or business?
Oh my gosh, what is coming up next? I feel like there's so much goodness going on.
Yay.
And I'm pretty sure I know that we have a discount code for your people.
Yes,
And
it will be in the show notes.
yeah, it'll be in the show notes. But you guys, Hello Clients, Hello Cash is registered trademark. It is my sales course. I am the whole intention and purpose, like if you've ever built a course and you've really done it right, it is a lot of time and work and investment money wise. Like it's a lot. But I know that everybody can't afford one-on-one coaching, right? It's not cheap. And I know it's not cheap with me because I'm not cheap. I've been doing this for 23 years,
Right.
worth every penny, but also I understand you have to meet people where you are. And God laid it on my heart to make that move and make that decision. And Hello Clients, Hello Cash is my sales course. It's got tons of testimonials. I ran it live, gosh, for about 2 years. And then we turned it evergreen so that people can access it at any given time that they want to. And so Danielle's audience, you guys have a special code for a discount off on Hello Clients, Hello Cash. And so you just go to natashahemmingway.com and it's /created worthy. And there's a $200 off code
Wow.
guys there. And the code is created worthy and you get $200 off of that. And you can go directly to the website that is unique for Danielle's listenership, which is again, natashahemmingway.com, which is 2 M's /created worthy.
Yes, and we will have that link in the show note as well. Thank you so much. That's so generous. I
You're
hope
welcome.
that you listeners, that if this has connected with you, that you go and check that out, get involved, work with Natasha. She is, I mean, I learned so much about you just from today. We had maybe 10 minutes that we talked in North
I
Carolina,
know.
but I was like, that lady, I need to talk to her more. So thank you so much for sharing that. We will also have links to her Instagram and her LinkedIn. And I just want to tell you, I am so, so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage and vulnerability to share your story. Please keep speaking out and leading others towards making a real impact and changing people's lives through heart, not hustle. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. If anything in today's show resonated with you, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show, and it also expands the impact, messages, and stories that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. If you're on social media, I want to personally invite you to continue the conversations about these important topics that we're talking about. You can find Created Worthy on both Instagram and Facebook by just typing in Created Worthy Podcast. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, you are created worthy.